Welcome back to the Green Means Go channel. It's your host, me, and for today's video, we are going to be reacting to a thread I saw on Reddit where people were posting their favorite NFL trivia, fun facts, tidbits, and I've always been a fun fact guy. I have always been a trivia guy. When we had to go to the library in elementary school and pick out a book, I did my very best to check out the Guinness Book of World Records books week after week after week, the almanacs week after week after week. Anything that was unique or admirable or stood out was something that I like to learn about and read about. So you can keep your Junie B. Jones, your Captain Underpants, and everything in between. I was going for the sports almanacs and the Guinness Book of World Records. So old habits die hard, I guess. Here we are. We're doing it again in a different medium. And we'll start with, again, this was the post that I found, and it is from 3 years ago. So I tried to pick fun facts that were still relevant today or would still hold up, but do know that this is from 3 years ago. The first one that was posted was that Julio Jones owns the top 6 Falcons single-season receiving yards record, but on the team's season receiving touchdowns list, he's not even in the top 10, which I don't think he's played for Atlanta in the last 3 years. Of course, he went to New England? No, he went to Tampa Bay, and he went to Philadelphia. So that is probably a fact that still stands up, but it's absolutely crazy that a guy of his magnitude can crack, has 6 titles for single-season receiving yards, but is not in the top 10 in terms of touchdowns. So certainly is a fun fact there for us, not really for Julio. Probably a disappointment for him. Players with a reception after turning 40 years old. Brady has caught his own pass, or a pass from someone else, after turning 40. Brett Favre has caught a pass after turning 40. And Jerry Rice has caught 175 passes. I believe these are the only 3 players who have caught a pass after turning 40. And it was added on to by industrial grade Trout. The yards one is even funnier because Favre's catch went for negative yards. So first is Rice, Brady is second. Tied for third would be everyone else, and then Favre would be at the bottom. But again, it's a little wonky because I don't think there are a ton of players who have a catch after turning 40. So, maybe this industrial grade Trout isn't as sharp as 250 people think he is. He might be, though. Let's go on to the next fun fact. Tony Gonzalez. After fumbling 5 times in his first 3 seasons, he only fumbled once over his last 14 season, in which he had 1,159 touches. I don't know what's more crazy, the fumble ratio here, or the fact that a NFL tight end played 17 seasons at all. I mean, that is slightly unheard of. 17 seasons for any position is crazy. 17 seasons for as dominant as he was, as targeted as he was, phenomenal. So he learned, evidently, how to hold on to the rock. He looks kind of like the Rock, I guess. I digress. Over his last 14 seasons, pretty remarkable. Third fun fact is the entire history of the NFL. There's only ever been 2 players in the league named Dalvin, okay? They were both drafted in the same year, 2017, in the same round 2, and they both currently played 3 years ago for Minnesota. As you can see, I chose to include 2 up-to-date pictures. So we have the Jets and we have the Browns. Both no longer play for Minnesota, but defensive tackle Dalvin Thompson and Dalvin Cook, both named Dalvin, both drafted in the same round, and both ended up playing for Minnesota. Probably the most bizarre one up to this point in the presentation. Never really heard of Dalvin Tomlinson. Of course, everybody knows Dalvin Cook, but still pretty impressive. This is a silly one, but the NFC North is the only division in football on which the teams are in alphabetical order by both their city, state name, and the mascot name. So we have Chicago, Detroit, Green Bay, and Minnesota. All of those are in alphabetical order. And then we have Bears, Lions, Packers, and Vikings. All of those are in order. No other division, no other of the 7 divisions do you see that sort of alphabetization in that respective order for all 4 teams. So take that to Thanksgiving when the Detroit Lions play next year. You can bust that one out to your uncle who's sitting there watching the game. Why not? he probably won't be impressed. But anyway, Bart Starr, Brett Favre, and Aaron Rodgers all won their first Super Bowl at age 27. If the Packers didn't go one and done in 2011, all three of them would have gone to back-to-back Super Bowls. So this is pretty crazy. All three of these Packers quarterbacks won their first Super Bowl with the Packers at age 27. So this is a little bit fascinating, and we've got a little bit of something to keep our eye on here. Jordan Love is 25 years old right now. His birthday, November 2nd, 1998. So this coming Super Bowl, Super Bowl 59, he would not qualify. He will be 26 by that time. He's 25 now. November, he'll be 26, and then February will be the Super Bowl. But next year, okay, Super Bowl 60, 2026, he would be 27. Packers are gaining some momentum in the league. People are really high on what they have. So I'm not saying history will repeat itself for the fourth time, but I'm saying they're not in the worst position to have it happen. So keep your eye on that. We could be seeing a four-peat there. Chargers had the number one offense and number one defense in the same season and missed the playoffs. They went 9-7. They averaged their starting drives on the 28.6-yard line, which is 27th best, near the bottom of the league, and they allowed their opponents to start on the 32, which was also near the bottom of the league. This guy says, and Industrial Grade Trout is on it, man. This guy is a repository of NFL facts. He's commenting on everyone's. Special teams matter. And for those who don't know, the number one offensive defense is based off yards. They both gained the most yards and gave up the fewest yards, but were second in scoring and 10th in points given up. The numbers don't even reflect the games that they lost on return touchdowns or missed field goal. They outgained their opponents by 125 yards in 6 of their first 7 games, which had never been done in NFL history, and the record was 2-5. I think this statistic is more impressive than this one, okay? To have the number one offensive defense and miss the playoffs, yes, that's a big deal. But to outgain your opponents by 125 yards in 6 of your first 7 games and only win 2 of those games is nuts, is bananas. So what was that, 2010? Phillip Rivers, Antonio Gates, I don't know their running back, like Darren Sproles maybe? So, just bizarre. Just bizarre stuff. Next fun fact, I don't even know what number we're on. Tom Brady outlasted Ed Reed, Troy Polamalu, and Calvin Johnson's career, their 5-year wait time, and their Hall of Fame induction. He was drafted 1 year after Antoine Winfield Sr., and they started their careers playing against each other, but then he helped Antoine Winfield Jr. get a ring. So he was drafted at the same time as someone's father, and he played with and won a Super Bowl with that father's son. Here's my side note about Tom Brady. I am thankful for his GOATness. I'm sick of the LeBron and Jordan debates. And if LeBron had as many rings as did Jordan, it would not even be a question. People equate greatness or GOATness to rings, which in some ways I understand. But Jordan's competition all throughout, obviously, in my opinion, was weaker and more watered down than LeBron's. You could argue LeBron will join super teams, which help him. I would argue that Jordan also was in that time on what we could call a super team. The point is, nobody really argues that Tom Brady is not the GOAT, and I'm thankful that we don't have to have that argument. I wish people would just recognize that LeBron is the best basketball player in the NBA of all time. And people are going to be mad at that, but I don't care. Moving on. This is a NFL and MLB fact. For the last 2 regular season games at Herbert Humphrey Metrodome, they were both 1-point wins over teams from Detroit. So the Twins game in 2009, a 6-5 victory over the Tigers, and the Vikings 14-13 win over the Lions. That's crazy. Both the last games that were played for both Minnesota teams, they won by 1 point. Baseball, I get it. 1-point victories happen all the time. But for a football game to have a 1-point victory, it's less frequent. So for that to happen against 2 teams from the same city, what are the odds? Somebody calculate that. I dare you. Put it in the comments. It will be nuts. Pac-Man Jones is the only player in league history to record a sack on defense and also be sacked on offense. He recorded 3 sacks in 12 years in the NFL. He was also sacked by Robert Mathis on a trick play against the Colts. And they have a video link to it if you'd like to watch. He's the only player to be sacked both sides of the ball in NFL history. So to both sack and to be sacked, and arrested, potentially. Not the only player to be arrested, but the only player to be sacked on both sides and arrested. This one is a bit long, but I think it's fascinating because this is the lore that I did not know. I did not know any of this, and it's good to learn. And if you didn't know, let's learn together. Players drafted number 1 overall by the Colts have won more Super Bowls for the Broncos than the Colts. I did not know John Elway was drafted by the Colts, and I did not know the story behind it. So we'll talk about that in just a bit. John Elway has 2 Super Bowl wins with the Broncos. Peyton Manning has 1. So that's 3 Broncos Super Bowls, and the Colts have 1 with Peyton Manning. So it is 3-1. So 1983, Baltimore Colts had the first overall pick, and Elway did not want to play for the Colts, but it was pretty much known that he would be drafted by them. And his agent and himself both said that baseball was a true option for him. He could go to the major leagues. Okay. He publicly threatened to join the Yankees full-time if the Colts did not trade him or trade the pick. All right. And then people talk about Caleb Williams and how he didn't want to go to the Bears this year and how, that was prissy, that was stuck up, that was fill in the blank. And I did not realize that people did this. You don't see it a ton, but I think people, if people are going to respect what Elway did, maybe we need to do the same thing for Caleb Williams. It was later published that he would have been a garbage collector before he would have played for Baltimore. Is that true? No, but it's funny. It might be true. I'm sure that was said, but it's more for the metaphor. And Terry Bradshaw was actually critical of Elway, and he said that Elway is not the kind of guy you win championships with, which obviously ended up being wrong not once but twice. With no trade before the draft, the Colts had to draft Elway and trade him later. Elway's family was called, and they told him, we're going to pick you regardless of baseball. He reiterated that day he did not wish to play for the Colts, and as it stands right now, he would be playing baseball, and he would be playing for the Yankees. And someone said, well, the Yankees were not on the West Coast, and Elway wanted to go to the West Coast to play football, and he says, well, they play baseball in the summertime. So I will never play for Irsay or Coach Cush, is what he said. So the Colts were interested in an offensive lineman, Chris Hinton, who the Broncos chose 4th pick in that same draft. And for fear that they would lose out on the opportunity to even get anybody out of it, they did not call Elway's bluff. They trusted him that he would not actually play for them. They traded the Broncos for that offensive lineman for Elway. They also got the Broncos' backup quarterback and a first-round pick in the next year's draft. The Colts' relocation to Indianapolis the following year would prove to somewhat vindicate Elway's concern, and the team would struggle until Peyton Manning showed up, which happened in Elway's last season as a player. So that's also kind of funny that Elway's final season was Manning's first season, how this all mixes up. So I did not know that John Elway lore. Fascinating. I did not realize he was so adamant about not being drafted by the team who had the overall number 1 pick, which was the Baltimore Colts, would later move to Indianapolis. This is the last fact. We're going to end with Seattle, my favorite team. And this is one that I did not know. And if you would have asked me which, if I could have gotten here with some clues, but I did not know this to be a true fact. The Seahawks are the only team in the entire NFL out of 32 teams who's never worn their white jerseys at home. So I think that's somewhat more impressive because since they wear their white on the road so much, the other teams can't wear their white jerseys at home. So it's just kind of funny that you have to think about the opposite being the case as well. So I want to say, I don't even know if they've worn their gray at home. I know that they've worn the green and the blue, obviously, as their main home kit, but I don't know if I'm sure. I don't know. I don't know if they've worn the gray at home. The gray is somewhat new in the Seahawks lineup. So that's what we got for you today. I could probably do an NBA fun fact video if that would be of interest. MLB, NHL, tennis. Probably not tennis. Thanks for coming by. More videos to come in the future, and we'll see you next time.